The benefit when you come down, there are very few places in South Wales where you don't hear noise, as you say, you don't hear traffic. You come here and you just hear, you know, in the summertime all you hear is birdsong. Fantastic place for somebody to live, to have this place as their back garden. We've got little clumps of scrub which allow refuge for things like hedgehogs, you know, storks, weasels, etc. Small mammals to get away from dog walkers and all the rest of it. And it's nesting potential for some of the small birds. So these are things which we all take into account as we manage in the woods, really. First two pandas came to London Zoo. They were at difficulty is what to feed them on. So the right species of bamboo, there are 5 different species of bamboo in Penllergare, but the right species was here. And every fortnight a carriage went from Swansea Station to Paddington, taking bamboo up to feed the pandas with. John Dermot Llewellyn had a private militia here. He drilled them regularly. He had a rifle range, you know, so all his estate staff would have been drafted into this private army. And we're talking in the days in the early 1800s, no police force. The army wasn't particularly popular or dominant in Wales. So, you know, he was the law. The guy would have to take his cap off and avert his eyes. He wouldn't dare look at Sir John. You know, he might get an odd wave or something. But that's the way this estate was run, and the sort of the hold that the family had on all and sundry round here. In the Rebecca riots, 1840s, in West Wales, the family were very involved in quashing the Rebecca riots, because he was the law. He was the Queen's representative or the King's representative down here. Some of my forebears were involved in the Rebecca riots. They came from St Clair's, and it was just social unrest. Nowadays we'd call it as probably a demonstration, you know, harmless. But in those days they quashed it with a rod of iron, and there were lots of people killed. You know, people killed not far from here. And then whether it was his forces that shot somebody was shot in Penllergare, just over the top there. But that was the way it was in those days, you know. I mean, I dare say there were urgent telegrams sent down urging him to stop it, because they were worried that it would spread and cause, you know, in Europe, in France, there were massive social uprisings, you know, with the beheading of the royalty and all the rest of it. The bridge itself here was built, it's what we call Sapper's Bridge, and it was built by one of the founder members of the trust was a lieutenant colonel in the army, and he called upon his colleagues in the Territorial Army, and they came here and built this bridge for us. Long before John Llewellyn had this as his private playground, his private garden, on this site was a mill, so that on a daily basis you'd get lots of little tenant farmers, crofters, cottagers coming here with a horse and cart and a bag and a half of corn to mill to have their meagre existence. So on this site lived a family, a mill keeper, and he'd have had a small plot, vegetable plot, no potatoes. Potatoes weren't in the UK at the time. You know, there'd have been some turnips, he'd have had a few sheep, a pig, a house cow, and maybe a draft horse. And a family living here existing, quite a big family probably, mortality was high. So, you know, the woods like this have had lots of usage over a period of years. And then of course, the Llewellyns took it over, decided they wanted a gentry estate, and probably, we think that the mill was probably ethnically cleansed. He didn't want an industrial building on his site, so he took the stone and used it elsewhere, maybe for some of his features on site, and all that's left is, we know on historic maps there's a mill marked here, there's the mill leaked, the stone and the remnants of it. In the late 1600s, when the mill keeper lived here, his children played round this sycamore, you know, and you can imagine, you know, take yourself back all those years ago with their meagre existence, but they were probably happy. And you know, this would have been there then. We've had several period dramas filmed in the woods, because a lot of it depicts native type habitat. The waterfall is one of the aspects of this woods which is historically quite important, and its main importance is it's a man-made waterfall, not natural, and it's where one of the first photographs in the world was taken of. So John Dermot Llewellyn and Henry Fox Talbot, some of the first frames ever recorded in the world were of that view, seen in about 1840, 1845, when they were pioneering photography. So there's lots of people, if you're a real photographic geek, and you go to a museum in New York, in Paris, in Berlin, that's the view which you will see on those original glass plates, which they pioneered. I like it best in January when it's been torrential rain. The water's coming down from Penllergare, it's brown, it's frothy, and there's a froth top on it, all the white top, foam coming off there, 20 foot off the falls. Wow. The river is up touching on around my feet here, and this area is just moist. And what you get this is again a unique habitat. You get these mosses and lichens in this area which are nowhere else. So you've got a unique ecology which is developed around this very, very moist atmosphere.
It never rains this much either.
It always rains here in the winter time here, and it can be dry everywhere else. You come down here and there's that moist feel to it all, which is fantastic. A lot of people come, as I said, from all over the world. They're not interested in the ecology, they are interested in the photographic references involved in Penllergare. So they'll stand on those stones, have their picture taken, so we get people from Japan coming here and have their photograph taken, and exactly replicating those first photographs that John Dillon Llewellyn took of his family, standing on those stones, and bang, click, they got exactly the same frame, except that in his day it took at least 20 minutes so they'd stand there going for 20 minutes while he went with his box camera with a little pinhole, click, and that's the way it was done. 20 minutes to expose a picture while they didn't smile. But his daughter was reputed to have been the first person known to have taken smiley faces. So somebody was mentioning ash dieback. There's a classic ash dieback here. Oh, yeah. That's broken, that's ash.
Sticks!
It's just dead.
Sticks!
So,
no, not those sticks. Sticks! Like sticks. You know those big stones on the water?
Yeah.
Are they all original?
Yeah, they're all original from the quarry, brought down, no mechanical means, no excavators, brought down with manpower and maybe horses. Wow. And the big ones, the flat ones there, they were laid as a pavement. And at some point in the future, one of our plans is maybe to reinstate that pavement. Up until about 4 years ago, it had filled in to such an extent, because we get lots of silt coming down. It's a high-speed river, carries a lot of muck with it, and deposits it hits this very still piece of water, and then deposits the mud here, so the lake starts filling in on a regular basis. Already, since we dug it out, we've found that it's starting to fill up again. Right. So when we had it done 4 years ago, there were 65 dumpers a day heading down the valley. We levelled the silt on the parkland site, so there were 65,000 cubic metres of soil went down there. It's a big process, quite costly, to reinstate the lake in the present form. So we get lots of support of lots of organisations, and it's great that we're learning how to make that work. But this tree, hopefully, it's been vandalised once, but it's got away. You'll see the growth. It'll have grown the first year to there, second year to there, third year, fourth year, fifth year. And so, these trees, they're fantastic living organic things, and they repair themselves, So hopefully that tree will get away and it'll be a feature for the future. I won't see it, but somebody will. Initially, when the trust was formed, the concept was to sell a wax cup of coffee out of a little hatch and maybe a chalky bicky. But we developed now into selling a nice variety of quality coffees, lovely sponges and cakes, which people appreciate. And we get people just coming to meet for half an hour, or to walk, take in the woods, or to spend a day here. There's lots of options. And we get a regular base of people. We get people come 7 days a week. There's a couple that I was talking to this morning. They're here 7 days a week. She had a triple heart bypass. They started walking here for health, and now they absolutely love the place. So it's very typical of the sort of people we've got. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed the walk.
Thank you for your
and-
knowledge.
yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it's
Incredible.
very interesting, I got to say. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Mine is a ramble. There's a lady, one of our ex-trustees, who does a pure history walk based on the Llewellyn family, and she's very knowledgeable on that period of the Llewellyns and their impact on Swansea, because they had a massive impact on Swansea. So that's a big thing. But mine is a sort of I do lots of things about the legend of the area, because I grew up with a lot of the tenant farmers and the families, so I know a little bit about some of the more seedier goings on, and you know, the legend that some of the tenants got up to, some of the big shooting parties and all the rest of it, you know. So there's lots of things, the history of the valley, and you know, you can't stress that going back 200 years ago, what a massive impact these very, very wealthy landowners had on an area. Absolutely huge. You know, there are families which owe their being in Swansea to this family, because what he did, I mentioned the gamekeeper in staff, for instance. I worked many years ago with a family who came here. Their ancestors were gamekeepers on this estate, but he brought the gamekeepers in from elsewhere because they were untainted. Because they policed the estate, so they didn't need to be related or attached to any local people, because they'd have to pursue and catch poachers. They didn't want any collaboration, so he moved them in. So those families came to Swansea. The Llewellyns brought them here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's a
There we are.
big impact.
Thank you very much.
There we are,
Thank you
great.
very much. It's interesting.
Thank you for coming. Anyway, that's the big thing. It's the group makes the walk for me, really. So my worst fear, as I say, on any event we do, is that nobody will turn up.
How often do
I don't think that
I love walking around the place on my own, but
Yeah.
not talking to myself. It's
not quite the same impact, is it?
no, I didn't quite the same great impact. And it's a two-way thing, and you know, thanks for being a nice audience, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.